Hey, everybody. It's us, the Z Lord Podcast.
There's a lot of humidity in the air.
The drum is always different, just like we are.
Every day.
Every day is different, just like the ocean, just like the weather, just like our feelings. Oh, my gosh. They come, they go, they're all over the place. And this is a beautiful day where we are. I hope it's a beautiful moment wherever you are. And we are getting ready for a trip. We've got our van packed up. We're going off to do some camping and some family reunioning and some trekking.
Gosh, going from Florida to Maine, there's a lot of a lot of traffic between here and Portland, Maine. My gosh.
Yeah, the world is busy. This is a busy world, and we're very crowded, and all we can do is try to be kind to each other.
I remember the first time we took that trip from Lakeland, Florida to Portland. We had a trailer, the dog trailer, and we filled it full of stuff and had an old Buick, and we packed 4 kids and mom and dad and drove up, and there was no 95, so it was like Route 17 all the way
No
up
rest
through,
spots, no
places.
No places to get snacks and bathroom and all that all together. That was in the 50s probably, right?
Dad said the cop pulled him over in South Carolina for doing something and says, "Have you made any stops?"
Jeez.
Dad started laughing.
A million.
"Have we made any stops?" He said.
That's the thing about people who have kids. I've all heard them say, "Why can't these kids all just go to the bathroom at the same time?" You know, it's a simple thing like that.
Anyway, it's a long way, and it's an interesting way, the eastern United States, because it's just so packed. And so the question is, how do you get there and still have a fun? How can you make fun out of all that situation? So that's an exercise.
Well, that's what we try to do with everything we do in life these days. Not to have a drudgery or not to make it too much of a discipline, but to have fun. And so today we're talking about, like, how can we make fun and have a comfortable time of really listening to our inner intuition, because there's so much noise going on in the world, so much cacophony. So, as one friend put it, her loudspeaker of chores overrides that still small voice within.
That's pretty good.
That's a really good metaphor.
Yeah.
The
Wow,
loudspeaker, not just of chores, but the news, the threats, the ambiguity, the confusion, and a lot of it is, just like, okay, it's a byproduct of our times. But still, even if we didn't have the internet and the press making more out of life than it is, we would still have a cacophony of life.
But the still small voice is an interesting subject because, first of all, we've all got one. Everybody's got one, and everybody, to a greater or lesser degree, is guided by their intuition and the still small voice, and we trust it or not trust it to varying degrees, depending on, in my case, well, I think depending on age. I found as I got older, it took me a long time to trust my inner intuition. I think other people were better at that than me. Other people trusted their intuition early on more than I did. But I got to trust it over time because you try things and you find out that, you discover as you trial and error that you know more than you think, or I knew more than I thought, but I never could shut up long enough and get quiet enough to just go within and try to figure out what was the best thing to do in a situation.
But I think a lot of people, I know myself, were not raised with the idea of listening and trusting and working with that still small voice. It was just never, ever discussed in my household.
It wasn't?
Never. My family was just a nuts and bolts, go to work, come home, eat,
Well,
do
didn't they
your
talk
chores.
about your intuition?
I just said they didn't. No, my parents were totally not into that. Not that I know of. I mean, if they did, they didn't talk to the other sibling and myself. So, I mean, your parents were more enlightened about the connection between spirit, mind, and body, because they They just were very interested in that. That was their, one of their passions, wasn't it? Their joint passions.
Yes.
Your mother an artist, your father a businessman, but still they were both very involved with studying the intuition and working with dreams. But my parents were not. I mean, there was, first of all, alcoholism in the family. And whenever there's an ism, whether it's workaholism or shopaholicism, any kind of ism like that, like an addictive type of behavior, that blocks the natural way of living.
Part of the still small voice is how do you operate so that you can be the happiest you can in life. So drinking is a way to get immediately happy. That it is actually a spiritual pursuit that is kind of wrongly used. So that's why most of the AA people that succeed are that they buy into the higher power, because the whole thing is trying to change your consciousness. That's what it's about. Is drinking is changing your consciousness from being busy and upset and pissed off about things,
but it's like a false.
It's false.
It's
it
a false.
Last but
it's like the false god. It's like worshiping a false god.
It ends up making you worse. But all the people that are doing it, that's what they're trying to do, is change their consciousness.
They're trying to alter their reality so they find happiness momentarily in inebriation, which is a fake kind of thing. And when it wears off, you usually don't feel so good. There's a price to pay. But metabolically even. But
the still small voice isn't just about happiness. It's about making good choices and choosing well and being smart and being in touch with what's real and what's just bullshit. And it's a great thing. It's spoken about. It's also a function, I think, of religious and prayerful type things, because in the Christian religion, and I'm sure in all other religions also, that one of the things is that the Holy Spirit and God is not only, Jesus himself said, and I think we spoke about it a few weeks ago, that the God is within us. So he's not only out there as God and also walking with us as our brother, as Jesus was as a human being, but the Holy Spirit also lives inside of us. So that means God is in there. So if we can get in there, if we can quiet ourselves enough to get in there, if I can, then I can tap into what the cosmos and what God, the Creator, has for me that's inside of me, and I can make better decisions. And it's not just me, it's everybody. Every human being on earth has a still small voice and an intuition if they can just get to it, if I can just get to it.
Right, so that's the real challenge. It's a challenge because, when I got sober, I was at the age of 36, and the very first thing you learn when a person goes into recovery is you have a choice. You have a choice whether or not to pick up that drink, that drug, that joint, that pill, that shopping bag. You have a choice. And I was at the state of, no, I don't have a choice. My life is miserable. I need this shit. So, the whole concept of being told that you have a choice about whether to use or not to use was a whole new concept of life for me, which was the introduction of listening to that still small voice within. Because I had to trust other people when they said that this is true, that you have a choice. I said, I'm desperate. I don't want to die, so everything I didn't work, so I'll do it your way. I have a choice. So I'd wake up in the morning and say, I choose today not to drink or drug. And by gum, I could stay sober that way.
Yeah.
But before I was introduced to knowing that I had a choice. So it's the same thing for those of you who are looking, how do I tap into that still small voice? You have to first trust other people who are saying, like we are, Carter and teZa Lord, and lots of other people. And like Carter said, religious people get it in different ways too. I'm not a religious person. I am a spiritual being. Carter is the religious one here. And I found that still small voice within by just getting quiet, by just first of all, getting out of the addiction, getting away from the cacophony in my own mind. Forget about out there in the world. It was right inside of me that I created the chaos and the fear and the confusion. I didn't need the threat of a dictator or a world war or any, robbery or murder. I had it all within me. I had so many problems from whatever.
Well, and that's not only you, all of us. And also in this increasing loud and noisy and angry world that we're living in, there's just a lot of stuff coming at us. So it's a great question that our friend posed, that how do you, the exercise of the week was to listen for the still small voice, and she was complaining that she had too many chores and things in her way.
And this is a person who meditates every day.
This is a person who's prayerful. So the whole thing is a work in progress, but it's a very interesting one. And just like in our own lives, all of us, some days are better than others, and things change, and we're constantly in a state of change all the time, even in our prayer life or in our regular life. Some days we feel good, some days we don't feel good. And the whole thing that we're involved in is, how do we stay on how do we get our lives on a good path so that we feel good more of the time than we feel crappy? And to your credit, I would say that you, early on in your life, were desirous of a better world than just the everyday noise, because you drank. And a lot of people to change it so that you felt better, because the minute you had a couple drinks, you felt better. And that's one of the things that we want to do, is to feel better. And the addictive thing, unfortunately, is there, and it's something that then has to be overcome. Then it becomes bigger to overcome than just if you were just doing it on a normal way. But each person that's listening to this has the same issue. We all want to get into that place where we make better choices.
And the addiction thing can become a useful stepping stone for anybody who has an addiction going on right now. It's not like, oh, you're condemned or you're a bad person. No, it's normal. It's human to get addicted to something. The whole exercise here is to get addicted to that, listening to the still small voice, to get addicted, to really crave that connection with the higher possibilities in life, the higher choices. Because we always have those choices in front of us.
Yeah, and to recognize and be aware of when we're feeling shitty and not feeling good, and it's kind of there and bugging us, but we're not really very well aware of it. We're just getting through the day and working hard, doing all the stuff. We're all busy, and
real busy,
and so the stuff's coming at us, and so the exercise then becomes addicted to be. That's a good way of putting it. Is to become addicted to insisting that we keep feeling good and keep trying to do the right thing at the forefront of what our awareness is, so that we're not just bulldozing our way through life, which is what I always did when I was a kid. I was a strong and loud. I had a lot of noise going on in my
You must
mind.
have been hell on wheels,
a monkey
Carter.
mind. I had a big monkey mind. Well, I was kind of ADD, and a lot of us are. That we've got this chattering going on, and so you can't ever escape it until I began to realize that it was there and that it was holding me back. And I remember, because I had a God experience and a Holy Spirit type of experience when I was, after I'd gone through.
But after trauma and crises, right? It didn't just come upon you in the meadow of your, youth. I mean, you had to go through the fires of hell.
That's right. But then what I realized is once I started going, praying and having a prayer which will calm you and quiet you, and all the wisdom that's in the book, in the Bible and in other, is all about just being in touch with something bigger than yourself. And so once you do that, then I started praying for wisdom. And once I started praying for wisdom, I have recognized.
You became a wise guy.
Well, I became a wise guy, but my choices are over time are better, and they're just better. I'm not saying that I know anything. I'm just saying that I do better now with my choices than I used to 30 years ago.
The first step in transformation is to have the desire to transform oneself or change or to better oneself, however it's put. I mean, if you have the desire, that's the first step. If somebody's just blind and asleep and unaware that they're living in a chaotic situation, they're not going to have that desire. So change is not going to happen to them until something happens. Usually there's something traumatic, like you, it was divorce and child custody, and for some people it's the death of a loved one or a really bad diagnosis in the doctor's office. There's usually something that catalyzes
Financial problems.
The dissipation of denial, because denial it's easy for us to just say, hey, this life is just the life, what's still small voice, hello, what are these people hallucinating? Are they psychotic? No.
It's intuition.
There are some of us who live really aligned with that God spirit within us. We pray to it, we honor it, we ask for help, and we're always looking for, even signs and direction and guidance. And we get it. And if you ask for it, you get it.
Yeah, well, it's like everything that if you work on it, it changes and it gets better. And so if you pray for wisdom, then you start getting a little bit. I'm not saying you get a lot.
Not overnight. No.
But I'm also saying that intuition is what we're talking about here. Your intuition, whatever it is that comes to you when you get ready to make a decision, whatever it is that your body, whatever your inside speaks to you and tells you, helps you make a decision. Every single one of us has that, everybody.
Yes.
So, and that's how we make our choices. And so I'm saying that we all have perfect intuition if we can just get ourselves out of the way and get the noise out of the way.
Yeah.
And if we can plug in and begin to trust it, which each of us should, because we all really know, and everybody really knows everything. The answer to all problems and everything is within each one of us. Each person has that in them. And then it's just a matter of trusting it, number one, and getting to it. Now, I know I'm not telling anybody anything they don't already know. Everybody knows this is listening to this.
That's not true. That's why we're podcasting, because we're sharing something that has given us joy and has given us a feeling of like usefulness. And why would we bother having a podcast
well, let me finish
if we didn't think that
then.
somebody would be interested in it?
Well, let me finish the thought then. So, I will say
You're
this.
being
I'll say
modest.
this, that I don't have perfect intuition, but if I do recognize that if I stop and get quiet and really think about something, my decisions are better, and my life, choices that I make about things improve, and I do better, and I know that I'm better now than I was 30 years ago, and I know it's because I've come to trust my own self more. That doesn't mean I'm not listening to other people, because I am, and people influence me all the time. But they're getting their intuition too, and when people are giving me their opinion, they're working from their intuition. And a lot of people have got great intuition, and some people don't have intuition that's worth a damn. A lot of people have got really crappy intuition, and so I would just say that in my case, and I'm encouraging everybody to honor your intuition, honor your thinking, honor what you think, because it's the most important thing. It's the most important thing you have, and the most important thing I have is to just get quiet and trust that I'm thinking right, and go for it. And you don't have to always, I don't always have to be justifying myself. I spend a lot of time justifying myself in discussions, and it's a good thing, because you need to know why you stand, why you think what you think. But it's not the end all. And the main thing is,
Well, wait a minute. You're justifying yourself because you're in a
you're in
conversation
discussion,
with
yeah.
somebody who has an
Different
opposing
opinion.
view. I mean, when you say that, I'm kind of puzzled. But
politically, I'm
because
speaking about a political
you
discussion.
have a lot of political things going on in your life, and I don't. Like, I would like to just interject as you were talking. When I first met you, which was, we've been married for, gosh, we're going to come 35 years in October. So, okay, almost 4 decades ago, I met you.
And you're still doing everything I said.
Yeah, right. And we thought about marrying, and Carter had 2 young kids that he had total custody of, and it was a complicated situation with a nasty bio mom who was on the outskirts. And I really was just a few years sober. I was 7 years sober, and I had not yet totally trusted my intuition. You test it at first. You give it little tests. And so I was still in a quandary, like, is this guy, really good for me? I asked other people's opinions. Some people said no. Other people said, well, maybe. I mean, nobody really said go for it. And there were a lot of disadvantages going on. And so what I did, which is a really useful exercise for anybody who is still just learning to trust that still small voice, I sat down with a piece of paper, drew a line right down the middle. On one side wrote pro, the other side con, and listed, with my pen and pencil, and I did this many times, the pros and cons of marrying Carter. And, really got honest with myself. And sometimes you can't just think. There's thoughts are kind of like clouds. They're just up there and they're nebulous. But when you put things to paper, it's a really good way to get in touch with your inner
true.
feelings. And
Same
a lot
with
of
goals.
A lot of journaling
You
helps
write down.
people. A lot of goal setting, like you did. But in deciding whether to marry Carter or not, the pro and the con thing showed me over and over and over again that there were so many more pros than cons. And the cons were serious things. They weren't just like, oh, he doesn't make enough money or his eyes are the wrong color. I mean, there were serious things. Like he was a staunch born-again Christian when we met, and I'm a very dedicated Eastern mystical person, a lifelong yogi. That in itself is enough to, scare most people away from having a union. And so, it was a big decision, and that's how I did it. And I tested my still small voice. And today I can say that when I have that gut feeling like I should do this, I should not do that, I totally trust it. But to get to that place where it's a trust of your inner, your inner divineness, your inner sacredness, because that's what intuition is. You have to take tiny steps before you really trust it. And
and it's still to this day.
It's been a good decision, right?
Yeah, but it's still.
Here we are, we're still married.
It's still like everything else in life. It's not like it's there with a big sign and a megaphone hollering at you. It's still quiet, and it's still down in there, and I've still got to be quiet and get down in there.
For some people, I mean, I've had experiences in meditation. This happened quite a bit, where all of a sudden, like a big billboard would appear in a meditation saying, "Go here, don't go there." I mean, really, when you have the earnestness that you want to have that connection with your inner divine nature, which is your intuition, which is your still small voice, it can appear like a billboard. But that takes practice. That takes practice.
And we're all different. It's different for you. What's right for you is different for me. And yes, but the more control you have over your monkey mind, the more and the quiet and being able to quiet yourself, which you're very good at that. I'll give you credit. You've done a lot of work.
I feed the monkey mind bananas. I give it the banana of a holy mantra.
But you're good about. I mean, you're constantly in meditation. You
I-
walk around the day with your mantra going on, and that's what the Jesus prayer is all about. The way of a pilgrim.
That's a mantra. That's your mantra.
It's a mantra.
It's not
right.
my mantra.
Right, but the point is that, like all things in life, everything is changing every day, and some days you're better than others, and some days you can play baseball better than other days. You hit better, and it's just the way it is. And so, it's interesting, and this is the path that every human being has, is to choose. Try to choose what the best and the right thing is, and it's not always necessarily self-serving. A lot of times the right thing is to give over everything to somebody else and not be selfish. In fact, you could almost say that's usually the best choice.
What do you mean? I don't understand.
Well, if you have a choice
to give over everything to somebody else.
Well, not like if you're going to make a decision on a business deal, for instance, that's going to make you more money than the other guy. But it's not really fair to him, and it's really going to hurt him, and you could take advantage. You might say, well...
Oh, that sounds horrible.
Yeah, well, that would be an example where you would be led to say, well, that isn't fair.
No.
We're not going to do that way. Well, let's make it more equal.
You would never do that.
I would never do that. But this is an example.
But some people
all
do.
Things
some
in
people
life.
do. Okay, so it goes back to
I'm
that,
saying
that,
others,
that old...
thinking about
that
others.
old approach to life that comes from Stephen Covey, the win-win way to make decisions, right? Stephen Covey. And every decision is
4
about
different
what's good for
quadrants.
me is good for you. I mean, the Stephen Covey thing was remarkable for decision making and whatnot. It's got to be a win-win deal when you make a decision that involves other people.
Yeah, but there's there's a few things that are well. Anyway, the whole thing about the still small voices, that it's there. We all have it. And one of the exercises in life, in fact, maybe one of the biggest exercises in life, and the reason we're even here in this life to begin with, in my view, is to try to get in touch with that which is God within each of us.
I'm
who
into
lives
that.
Inside of us. Mm-hmm. And can we be in touch with that, and can we act upon it, and thereby bring goodness to the world, as opposed to just our own selfish stuff racing around all the time, which is most of the selfish stuff is that cacophony that's coming at us, that noise. And we've got this never-ending noise that's hollering at us, telling us to do this and do that. And that's okay. We get a lot of things productively done. But also, if I can bring my wisdom, quote unquote, to whatever noise is coming at me, and make a better decision for not only me, but for everybody else, then the world is a better place, and that's what we're doing here. That's all.
Right, but like you said, it's a stage of life thing. Because when you were younger, you were a rah-rah athletic guy. You were a very aggressive football player, which takes a different headset than listening to the still small voice within, right? So you were not interested in those things in those days, right? Because that was the stage of life you were
competitive, very competitive.
You were competitive, and if anything, you just the voice you listened to in your head was how to win and how to
stomp on the other guy.
Right. So really, the life decisions that we make about what we do with our time, our career choices, our relationship choices, all of those things are all tied together. Like, because some people just have put themselves in situations like you as a competitive football player, when you decided to do that, how can you? You can't. So what you do, you went away to the jungle. You said goodbye to everything. You walked away from this life, and you went to the Amazon jungle. Now, did you find the still small voice there, or were you even interested? Probably not at that stage.
I was surprised to find that I was still there.
You were still there.
I was trying to get away from me, but unfortunately, like all people that travel, I think we all come to the realization that we're always, no matter where we go, we're always there.
I know. I've been meditating.
We have to come to grips with ourselves.
I've been meditating since I was a teenager, because I had a very disturbed mind. And I knew when I first started meditating that, oh, wow, oh, relief. But yet, I was not ready to sign on the dotted line that this was going to be my way of life. I still had some more partying to do. And so I, even though I had experienced that true connection with that still small voice, which happens more if you're able to meditate. The more you meditate, the more you become familiar with that.
And if you're sober,
So
better if you're
sober and meditation. But like I said, after I received this gift of meditation, it was TM, it was 1968, and I had great relief, and I knew within me that my life would not be complete until I was ready to dedicate myself to that. But I wasn't there yet. I still had some partying to do. So what did I do? I went on, a rampage, instead of going to the jungle like you did, I went to the Caribbean and became more or less like a wild pirate lady and
to Dominica.
And ended up in the Dominican Republic before Dominica or after Dominica, all in between there, in jail. And while I was in jail, no booze, no distractions. I tried to get to that still small voice within, but I was so disturbed and so angry and so scared and so confused that the cacophony of the being in prison was too tremendous, and all I did was smoke cigarettes and pace like a lion in a cage. Smoke and pace and smoke and pace and smoke and pace. And got very, very disturbed. So my journey was not a straight line from realizing that still small voice was the remedy for being a disturbed individual to embracing it. And I had to go through all these traps and real hellholes until finally, after the prison scenario, is when I finally embraced sobriety, number one, and found a teacher and learned how to meditate, number two, and dedicated my life to working with that still small voice within. And that was just before I turned 40.
Just before you met me?
Yeah, no, 7 years later you came along.
You were pretty good.
Yeah.
You were pretty good. You were pretty good by the time I met you. All that stuff. You were well along the path. You weren't working that stuff out. But yeah, let me just say that I think that this is a normal. Yours was pretty intense, but I think everybody goes through that path.
They do.
Each person goes through this whole thing.
Pitfalls.
It just takes a while to trust it and get involved in it and become aware of it, and to realize that it's there and it's there to help you, and that your choice, that you know the answer already. You just have to get in touch with what the answer is and begin to have trust and faith in ourselves. I have to start to trust myself.
Yes.
And I began to after a while, because my decisions had always I didn't hardly make any decisions. I was just reactive.
You were like a leaf in the wind.
Yeah.
And you were just getting blown away by the winds of fate.
I was a cliff jumper. I never saw a cliff that I didn't want to jump off of. I would just come to a cliff and boom, over I'd go. And so, but then I began to, after I broke my leg a few times, I started saying, well, maybe I should think about it before I jump off this cliff. And I started having less broken legs and being more successful by climbing down and walking around and doing it better. And I think we're all in that boat. And it's okay. There's nothing. It's just part of life.
So,
but the still small voice is real.
What's it like today, Carter? What's your relationship with the still small voice today? This moment.
It's interesting. I think I'm much more aware now of when I'm feeling bad, and I'm not working like a madman like I was, and all the rest of young people have to do. They just get up and start running and raising kids and all that stuff. So we're all just
earning a living and
overwhelmed by
little
stuff that's coming at us all the time that we have to deal with. So I don't have so much of that anymore. So now I get up in the morning and I can sit quietly, and be calm. And if I'm not calm, then I can think about why am I not calm, and then I can get calm. So but I'm 79 years old now, and
pretty
it's taken
sexy.
a long time to get here, but it's real, and it's good, and it works, and I find my thinking to be right on about big political issues, and of course people on the other side of the fence think I'm crazy, and they're my age and they think they're right on, and I think they're crazy. So anyway, whatever it is, I would just say that it's there, and we all have it, and maybe there are. Anyway, God is within you and is within me, and he's also outside of us, but he's also in there.
He, she, it.
And he, she, it. And so the exercise for me is to be kind to myself and recognize that life changes day to day. So it's not today not the same as yesterday or tomorrow. And that it's still a work in progress, as I noticed my dad, who was 99, and he was still, he never really got to the finish line, and I don't think any of us ever get to the finish line. Maybe Jesus got to them, maybe Buddha, and maybe some of these enlightened masters and sannyasins, maybe they get to the finish line, I don't really know.
What do you mean by finish line? Death?
I mean, realization,
We all get to
totally
death.
realization.
Oh.
Totally melding with God.
To become God realized?
Well, becoming so that you really understand
Well, we're all on the journey.
None of us ever will get to the point where we are really completely part of the cosmos, other than we just are part of it.
Excuse me, I'd like to interrupt.
Go ahead.
In meditation,
You can get
I
there.
feel that.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying I'm God realized, but when I meditate, it is wonderful.
Yeah.
And I want to stay there forever. And it's just because I've gone through decades of dedicating my life to experiencing that. But still, when you come back to ordinary life and you have to do the dishes, it's a bummer.
That's right. Well, that's right.
know?
And that's what I'm saying about life is we never get there. You can't go there and stay there forever. You can go there and have a glimpses of it, but you come back. And that's what life is. And so that's actually the good part of it, because then tomorrow you'll think, oh, well, let me go do that again. And then you'll get better at it and you practice it, just like if you're playing tennis or something, you get better at it. And so that's what being in touch with the still small voice is, realizing it's there, going in there and looking for it and feeling it around and stumbling across it and using its power and its wisdom to guide you or to guide me. I use it to guide me and try to make better choices. And then if I've made a bad choice, then tomorrow I get another chance.
Okay, so one other question. I feel like I'm always the one asking questions. You
Okay.
never ask me anything. But when we got that reminder from our friend that this was the exercise for the week, and she said, oops, the cacophony or the loudspeaker of my life's chores overwhelmed that still small voice. And so she forgot that was her mission, to send out the reminder. And then I thought to myself, how can I, right now, with all the things I'm doing, and the lists of to-dos, and the deadlines, and the pressure of wanting to, accomplish this and that, how can I find that still small voice without dropping everything and going into meditation? Because, that's not practical. You can't be in the meditation all the time. And so I kind of did a little exercise, a little mental check on myself, and said, okay, where is that still small voice? Although there's so much going on. And it was challenging. It was challenging because, yes, life is overwhelming, especially, in 2025. We've had a lot of challenges going on in life. And so I didn't want to just drop everything and go into meditation. And so I looked for that still small voice within. And for me, after having done that for like a day and a half or something, I realized that just the wanting, the listening, is being in touch with it. Because I want to be in touch with that connection of the divine within. And I listen and I wait. And nothing miraculous happened. I didn't have a billboard of direction. I didn't have any signs or anything, but I had a sweet feeling of calm.
There you go.
Even in the middle of the storm of
There
life.
you go.
It's you get
That's
you
the
get
sign.
you get that feeling
Peace.
of even in the forces of a storm, which is what life is like so much today. And yes, there are things that are depressing and annoying and even life-threatening, but by searching and wanting to be connected to that still small voice, I kind of just slid into this comfort zone.
Well, that's where God is in the peace.
And that's just the wanting.
No question.
Just the wanting to know that there's
well,
that
you've
connection
practiced
possible.
at it. You've done it a lot. You're good at it. But it's also about balance. I mean, you can't just stop your whole life right now in the moment and go deep into meditation. But you've got so
Right.
many years under your belt of it that you can just kind of slip into it and bring it along with you. And if you can start to feel the peace, that's God. That's where God is. So
Like, I just want to share one thing before we say goodbye. But when I first started earnestly discovering that still small voice, which I did through meditation. Some people find it in other ways, like through reading scripture or something. But
or sports.
Well, okay, but that takes a lot of aggression too. So when I was in that quiet state of meditation, this happened quite often. There would be an irritation going on, like a dripping faucet, for instance, or a neighbor deciding to turn on the radio, or a barking dog. And I realized that that stillness that I was trying to cultivate was interrupted. And my attention would go to the dripping faucet or the radio or the barking dog. And I would get, annoyed. And there was even a New Yorker cover done once about, I have it clipped out, it was 15 years ago or more, 20, a gal was trying to meditate and there was a fly buzzing around her.
I know that
right?
image.
Yeah, and so she's sitting
pissed
there,
off.
she's in lotus position, it looks like she's totally serene, but her face is angry because of that fly.
Right.
And so what I realized, the more I meditated, the consciousness that I have can bend around annoyances and go to that still small place. So even today, if there's a barking dog or a radio or a faucet, yeah, I can hear it. I'll say, oh, there's the annoyance. But through training, through wanting and experiencing, you can bend consciousness like a radio wave and just make it go around or through whatever, but not on that annoyance. And it's quite miraculous. And what happens is your consciousness just blocks it out. It just goes away. Like that happened to you the other day when we were chanting. We do a yogic chanting, and Carter got so annoyed with this certain musician who was playing with us that he shared later that it interrupted your serene experience, right? That's the whole purpose of chanting, to still the mind. You remember?
Yeah.
And so with me, I noticed that he was playing not well, but I did that bending of the consciousness. Our consciousness is really truly remarkable. It is just unlimited in its ability to adapt and to be useful in all different circumstances. So I just urge everybody to do experimenting with tapping into that still small voice, and even just going for a walk in nature. That's a good way to start.
Nature is great because that's God manifested in material. So that God is in nature, in a tree, like a tree's just sitting there for 150 years doing nothing, just sitting there. But there's a lot going on,
Right.
but you can't see much movement. And then there's
And turn your screen off.
and
for a few
Eckhart Tolle
minutes
is
at
on
least.
to it with being on the now. If we can get on the if you can get on the now, you can really get it.
Yeah.
I can get in touch if I
You're-
can get
yeah,
on
if
the
you're,
now.
that's a good suggestion. If you're looking for a teacher, just tune into Eckhart Tolle's work, which is really widely available on YouTube.
The power of now, yeah.
or the book or however.
But you don't have to buy into any doctrine with him. You can just absorb where he is.
It's an exercise, and you get better and better at it, just like Carter does. He's a 79-year-old ace tennis player who
The sports
works at it.
Sports thing gets you on the now, because if you're fully extended and you're going after a ball and it's hanging in the air there, you have to concentrate on it. And in the moment of full extension of hitting it or picking it or catching it, you've stopped time right then, and that's what the attraction of sports is, even for spectators, because it's happening right now, and people are attracted to that because all the other bullshit goes away, all the worries and the lives and the this and the cacophony and all that. You're focused on that pass that is going through the air, and the entire people in the stadium is watching that pass, and they're all experiencing that instant. So for that instant, everybody is on the now. Then they make the catch, and then the guy starts talking on the radio, and the now goes away. But for that instant, and you can have it on the tennis court, you can have it playing
golf
or anything,
popular,
or
so
even
popular.
walking, or any kind of a sports involvement that has to do with the now, being present at that instant, or you're going to get hit in the face. Like if you want to throw a baseball, somebody throws a baseball at you. If you don't catch it, it'll hit you in the face.
Wait a minute. Walking is not a sport; it's an activity.
But you can get there on the now by putting one foot in front of the other, not stepping on the root. You can do that stuff.
With chopping onions for your dinner.
Yes.
With anything, with driving,
That's right.
Just to be totally
Any physical
focused.
act.
And anything where you're involved in as an activity, you can use it as a form of focusing intently on your activity and not have distractions.
And that's why
that takes practice.
That's why that's why that we get to God through our humanness, through our material. And there's a lot of discussion about, we got to get away from our body and away from our stuff. It's just in our way.
You can't be rich.
I don't think it's any of that.
You can't have possessions.
The way
That's
that you
bullshit.
get to God is through how we deal with our day-to-day material stuff. Our human body is the tool that we use to get into the spirit world. And so one of the ways to do it is to stop time and get on the now. And there's a lot of ways of doing it. But anyway, that's another subject for another day.
Well, so I hope we have given some suggestions about how to tap into that
small voice is a great place.
And we wish you many happy
all
moments. We don't know if we'll be podcasting regularly on our journeys, but we'll try our best.
It's nice to know that we all actually know everything.
What?
We all.
Everything is within us.
Inside of us.
Oh, yeah.
We all know
the way you phrased it.
Just a matter of
wait a minute. I think
getting to it.
The way it was phrased is everything that is a question to us, we have the answer for within. That's better than saying we know everything.
Later.
Okay. Om Namah Shivaya.